counsel at the bench regarding a portion of the interview that the state's about to play. The state had proposed a redacted version of that interview, which would not have the jury hear the invocation of silence. There was some discussion about whether the defense was going to ask for either a redacted version or an unredacted version be played to the jury. I wanted the defense to have an opportunity to confer with Mr. Clegg to understand whether if there was a request for an unredacted version to be played, that decision be made after conferring with Mr. Clegg. Attorney Dominguez, have you had a chance to confer with Mr. Clegg?
We have had an opportunity to confer with him. At this point, we would ask that the state play the unredacted version. I believe it's the enhanced unredacted version. We had previously discussed an instruction regarding Detective Brown's statements. We would ask an additional instruction, just essentially notifying the jury that his actual invocation is not something that can be used against him.
No objection to that.
I absolutely. Just so it's clear, that the unredacted version would not have the jury hearing him invoking his rights. I understand the limiting instruction will be given, but Mr. Clegg is in agreement that the jury can hear him invoking his rights on the audio.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And the instruction regarding invocation be at the end?
Oh, you want that to wait until
Yes.
the very
The
end?
limiting at the beginning and the
Okay, so the limiting about Detective Brown's statements coming at the beginning, the limiting about the invocation coming at the end.
It's fine.
Okay. Great.
So they're not thinking about it the whole time.
No, you're totally right. No, that was on a different time. Yes. Which I don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Members of the jury, before we get started with further questioning, you're about to hear an interview by Detective Brown of Mr. Clegg, and just a limiting instruction about how you're to view statements and questions by Detective Brown. Those questions are not coming in as substantive evidence. They're just coming in to help you understand the context in which Mr. Clegg was responding to questions. Mr. Clegg's responses to those questions and his statements are evidence, and you may consider them, but the statements by Detective Brown, the questions themselves for content, are not in and of themselves substantive evidence.
Could we approach?
Yes.
So Detective Brown, on October 12th of 2022, did you speak with Logan Clegg?
Yes, I did.
Where did that conversation take place?
At the South Burlington Police Department headquarters in South Burlington, Vermont.
About what time during the day did that take place?
It was around 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
And was there any particular room in the South Burlington Police Department that conversation took place?
Yes, it was an interview room that is part of their booking area.
And was the conversation you had with Logan Clegg recorded audio and visual?
Yes, it was.
After you conducted that interview, did you learn that there were some issues with the recording process?
Yes, I did.
Just briefly describe what those issues were.
My understanding was that it was automatically recording based on motion and sound activation. I later learned that there was an issue and it had to be manually activated, and so the first 13 minutes or so of my interview were not recorded.
So, did you ultimately obtain a copy of the recording that was made of your conversation with Logan Clegg that day?
Yes, I did.
Have you listened to that recording?
Yes, I have.
When you listened to that recording, were there any issues with the quality or intelligibility of the audio?
Yes, there was.
Could you describe what those were?
It's very difficult to understand some of the things that Logan Clegg said. He talked softly, and the recording didn't capture clear audio of him on many occasions.
Are you aware that a copy of that recording was enhanced to improve the quality of the audio?
I am aware.
Have you reviewed the enhanced version of that audio?
Yes, I have.
Detective, I'm showing you state's Exhibit 89. Take a look at this, please.
I do.
What is it?
That is the enhanced audio, and I reviewed it on October 5th and put my initials and the date.
And so just for clarity, this is a CD-ROM, is that right? Or CD?
Not sure if it's CD or DVD.
Some type of disc?
I'd go with disc. I don't know if it's a CD or a
Does
DVD.
Does this disc contain the enhanced version of the interview?
Yes, it does.
At this time, you're able to introduce the state's 89.
Any objection?
No, you are.
89 is the full exhibit.
And then, Detective, even after reviewing the enhanced version, what is the quality of the enhanced version?
Slightly better. It's still difficult to understand at many points.
About how long was your interview with Logan Clegg?
It was over an hour, and then we took a break, and then there was probably 12 to 15 minutes after the break.
But how long was the break?
It was about 30 minutes or so.
Is that break of 30 minutes or so reflected in the recording?
Yes, it's basically a period of silence.
And is that about 30 minutes worth of silence?
Correct. There may be a point when a South Burlington officer entered and removed Logan. There might be some dialogue there, but it's generally 30 minutes of silence at that time.
Detective Brown, do you see the person you interviewed on October 12th in South Burlington, Vermont, here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you please identify him by indicating an article of clothing that he is wearing?
He is wearing a blue button-up shirt.
Your Honor, may the
He's
record-
sitting right there next to
may the record
Attorney
so
Smith.
reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
The record may so reflect.
Detective Brown, does the defendant appear substantially similar, the same today as he did back then?
Generally, he looks thinner to me, like he's lost some weight.
Detective, during your interview, what tone of voice did you use?
Relaxed, even, calm.
Did you maintain that relaxed, even, calm tone of voice throughout the interview?
Yes.
At any point, did you yell or scream at the defendant?
No.
At any point, did you use aggressive body language or gestures towards him?
No.
I'm going to now ask you some questions about the specifics of the interview. How did the interview begin?
I entered the room. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think. I may have been in the room first and Logan came in, but either way, I introduced myself, identified myself as a detective from Concord PD in New Hampshire. I said that I was investigating a case from Concord and I wanted to ask him some questions if he was willing to speak with me.
After you introduced yourself, what did the defendant say?
He said something to the effect of what's really going on, and he referenced the high number of officers that had taken him into custody.
At that point, did you read the defendant his Miranda rights?
I did. I basically told him I would answer his questions, but I wanted to make sure that he fully understood his Miranda rights prior to doing so.
And the defendant, was he amenable to that?
He was.
Did you in fact go over those rights with him?
Yes, I did.
Did he indicate that he understood those rights and was still willing to speak with you?
Yes, he did.
after that process, did you continue speaking with him?
Yes.
And before we go any further, this was all at the beginning of the interview?
Correct.
Was that initial part of the interview that you just described contained on the recording?
No, it was part of that initial 13 minutes that was not recorded.
So just generally speaking about what, well, never mind. So after that process, did you indicate to the defendant why you were questioning him?
I did.
And what did you tell him?
That I was investigating a double homicide that occurred in Concord, New Hampshire around April of 2022.
And again, at what point in the interview did you do this?
This was early on, so it was within the first 13 minutes.
When you told the defendant the nature of the matter you were investigating, what was his response?
Well, I basically told him that we became aware that he had worked at McDonald's on Loudon Road during the winter and that he was somebody that we wanted to speak with.
And what did he say to that?
I don't recall exactly. I believe I asked him if he was in Concord around April of 2022.
What did he say about that?
He said he didn't believe he was, that he had left, he estimated around March when there was snow on the ground.
Did you ask the defendant if he had heard about the murders of Stephen and Wendy Reed?
Yes, I did.
What did he say?
He said that he did not read or watch the news and that he had not heard of the murders.
Detective, did you ask Mr. Clegg when he arrived in Concord?
I did.
What did he tell you?
He said he arrived in November of 2021.
And did you ask him where he was prior to coming to Concord?
I did. He
And
said
what-
that he had been in Germany.
Now, you mentioned McDonald's. Did you ask the defendant if he worked at the McDonald's on Loudon Road while he was here in Concord?
Yes, I did.
What was his response?
He said that he did work there and that he left, again, he estimated, I believe it was around March of 2022.
And when you say he left, was he indicating that he had quit or left the
Objection.
employment?
No, there's a lot of leaving here.
Yeah, without character, just without, was he indicating,
Sure.
what does Detective Brown recall his words were?
What do you recall his words were when he described leaving McDonald's?
That I believe he used the word left.
Okay. Did you ask the defendant about how he left Concord?
I did.
What did he say?
That he had taken a bus that ultimately went to Burlington, Vermont.
Did you ask him for details about that trip?
I did.
And what did he say?
That it first went to Boston, Massachusetts, before going to Burlington, Vermont.
Did the defendant tell you specifically when that bus left Concord? Or when that trip happened?
He could not remember. He said it was a long time ago, and he believed that there was snow on the ground at the time that he left.
Detective Brown, did you ask the defendant where he lived while he was in Concord?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he lived in the tall, grassy area under the power lines next to the Shaws on Loudon Road.
Now, I know we've seen a number of maps here. Did you ask further questions to determine the exact location that he was indicating?
I did.
And what was his response?
In our back and forth, he described that it was the area, if you're looking at Shaw's from the parking lot, it's to the right side. He described it as the power lines between Shaw's and Home Depot, which I knew to be the right side of the Shaw's as you're looking at it.
Is there a Home Depot next to the Shaw's on DeMonte Drive near Loudon Road?
There is. It's right behind the Shaw's.
Is that consistent with his description?
Yes, it is.
Is that area north or south of Loudon Road?
That area is south of Loudon Road.
Did you ask the defendant what he used for shelter while he was living in Concord?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he used a tarp, a really old tarp that he made into a makeshift tent, but that he did not own or use an actual tent, and that unless it was raining, he generally slept outside.
Did you ask the defendant if he ever stayed in the wooded area near the Alton Woods complex?
I did, and he said that he did not stay there.
Did you ask the defendant if he had any friends or family in the Concord area?
I did. He said he had no friends or family and no relatives in the state of New Hampshire.
Did you ask the defendant about where he shopped for food while he was here in Concord?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he shopped at the Shaws, and I believed he was referring to the one that we were talking about, and the Hannaford by the bus station.
And did you ask him to describe the location of the Shaws and the Hannafords you mentioned?
I asked about the Hannaford. Again, I believed he was referring to the Shaws next to the power lines. I did ask if he was referring to the Hannaford. There is a bus station on Stickney Avenue, and there is a Hannaford basically directly across the highway from that. And based on his answer, I believe that's the one that he was referring to as far as where he shopped at a Hannaford's.
And is that the Hannafords on Fort Eddy Road?
It is.
Is there a Hannafords on Loudon Road in Concord?
There is not.
Did you ask the defendant if he shopped anywhere else in Concord?
I did. He said it was just those two places, or just there, I think were his words.
Did you ask the defendant if he bought any items online?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he got clothes and other stuff from Amazon and eBay.
Did you ask the defendant if he ever shopped at the Walmart in Concord?
I did.
What did he say?
He said it was rare. He didn't like to go there because it was far.
Now, did you ask him more questions about that, about shopping at Walmart?
I did.
Could you describe how that conversation went?
Ultimately, I described that I had seen video of a person that looked like him and that this person went to Walmart pretty regularly and bought propane tanks, bought uncooked meat, and again, that it was a regular occurrence for this person.
And when you described that to Logan, what was his response?
He said that he only went there a couple of times. He basically said that he was not the person that bought propane tanks. Regarding the uncooked food, he said that he'd never purchased raw meat, and he basically asked, how do you even cook? And I replied that presumably that's what the propane tanks are for, is for heating cooking equipment, and he said that's not something I ever did, or something to that effect.
Did you ask the defendant about purchasing any tents at Walmart?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he did not purchase any tents at all while he was in Concord.
Did you ask him about specific tent purchases?
I did. There was a tent that was purchased in November of 2021. He said that he did not purchase a tent. I told him that the same person also bought a second tent one day after the murders on April 19th, and that person did not wear a mask, and that person appeared to me to be him, Logan Clegg, and he basically said that he didn't know what I wanted him to say, but he was not that person.
Did you ask the defendant if he ever wore a blue bandana?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he didn't remember wearing a blue bandana.
How did the conversation continue after he said he never wore a blue bandana?
Could you be more specific?
I apologize, I asked a better question. Did you ask him further about your belief that he was the person at Walmart?
Yes, I told him pretty candidly that I had personally reviewed this video, and I believed that he was the person that made these purchases, and he maintained that he had only gone to Walmart a couple of times.
Did you ask the defendant if he ever lived in the area of the Broken Ground Trails?
I did.
What did he say?
He said that did not sound familiar to him.
Did you describe the area of the Broken Ground Trails to him?
I did. I described how you would get there from the Shaws, which is basically walk across Loudon Road, go by the trail that goes past an apartment complex called Alton Woods, go through a small wooded trail to Portsmouth Street, make a left onto Portsmouth Street to a small parking lot, head up a trail called the Marsh Loop Trail, and when you get to an intersection, make a left, go uphill. And then I described that at the top of the hill there was a small deer path that led to a site.
And what did the defendant respond when you described this to him?
He basically said that he stayed close to the main road. He did not go to that area. He did not stay in the woods at all.
Did you ask him if he was familiar with Alton Woods?
I did. He said he was not familiar with it.
Detective Brown, did you ask the defendant about a person seen leaving the Shaws on Loudon Road on April 18th of 2022?
I did. I described that the same person that we saw at Walmart was also observed leaving Shaw's, and that that person did not go to the area of the power lines that Logan was describing. Instead, he crossed Loudon Road and was last seen walking towards that path that goes past Alton Woods. And I asked him again if he had ever stayed in broken ground or in that area, and he said no.
Detective Brown, did you ask the defendant about guns?
I did.
What did you ask him?
I asked him if he ever had an opportunity to fire a gun while he was in Concord. He said no. I asked him if he ever heard anyone shooting a gun, and he said basically, I never heard any gunfire while I was in Concord.
Did you ask the defendant about the burned tent site?
I did.
And could you describe how that conversation went?
Again, I described to him how to get to that point from Shaw's, and I described that I saw when I got there basically a 10 by 10 square with a lot of burnt propane tanks. And I basically asked if he had ever stayed there, if he had ever set fire to that, or had any knowledge of that particular site, and he said no.
Did you ask the defendant if he'd ever seen a couple matching the Reed's description?
I did. I described them as an older couple with a white male and an African-American female, and asked him if he ever encountered anyone like that, and he said no.
Did you ask the defendant whether he ever had any contact with the police while he was in Concord?
I did, and he described seeing Concord police officers, but he said that he never had any conversation and was never stopped by any Concord PD officers while he was in Concord, and that the last officer or last police contact he had was in Utah.
Did you ask him if he talked to any police on April 20th?
I did. I described how our officers encountered a man in a tent on April 20th or 21st, and asked if that was him, if he had contact with Concord PD on either of those days, and he said no.
Did you ask him about the name Arthur Kelly?
I did. I described that the man in the tent gave the name Arthur Kelly, and that an officer had asked twice, and the person gave the same name, and I asked if he had ever used the name Arthur Kelly or given the name Arthur Kelly to Concord Police, and he said no.
Detective, did the defendant ask you any questions during your interview?
He did.
What did he ask you about? Or did he ask you, sorry, did he ask you about his Utah case?
He did.
What did he say? Or what did he ask?
He had a question about extradition. He said, is it going to be expedited? I presume that he meant extradited, meaning transported back to that state, and I basically answered with the knowledge that I had at the time.
And about when, during your conversation in the span of it, did that occur?
That was a significant portion shortly before we took a break. I don't remember the exact time frame, but we had discussed quite a bit before then.
Detective, at any point did you make clear to the defendant that you were not looking to speak with him about anything related to Utah?
I believe I did that right at the beginning when I introduced myself. I believe I told him that I knew he was there on a probation warrant violation, and I was from Concord and was investigating a Concord case. I believe that was right at the beginning.
Detective, you mentioned asking the defendant about the name Arthur Kelly. Did you eventually ask him more questions about the name Arthur Kelly?
I did.
And how did that go?
Could you be more specific?
Did you ask him if there was any reason he would provide officers with the name Arthur Kelly?
I did. I basically told him at one point that I was concerned about this Arthur Kelly thing, that what Logan was describing and what I knew about Arthur Kelly, they seem very similar. I asked him if there would be any reason that he would give the name Arthur Kelly to Concord PD, and he basically said that that was not something that he had done.
Did you ask the defendant about purchasing things online?
I asked him so he had told me that he bought clothes and stuff from Amazon and eBay, and I basically asked how he made those purchases. He described that I think he first said credit card and then clarified that it was a debit card that was connected to his employment. I asked him if he still had that card. He said no, it stopped working after he had stopped working for that business.
Did you ask the defendant about purchasing vitamins online?
I did.
Could you please describe that portion of the conversation?
I described that the person that was at Walmart used gift cards, and that those gift cards had also been used for online transactions, including Amazon, and that that person had bought vitamins at one point and had those vitamins delivered to Concord General Delivery under the name Logan Clegg. He said he never ordered vitamins online.
Did you ask him about using general delivery?
I did. He said that that was something that he had done and that he did use his actual name for general delivery, but that he had not purchased vitamins.
Detective, did you ask the defendant about an email address, rkxkelly@gmail.com?
I did. I described that the person that used the Amazon account and the online transactions had created an Amazon account that used the Gmail address rkxkelly@gmail.com. I asked him if he was familiar with that email address, and he said it was not familiar to him, or he did not know it.
Did you ask him about that email address in relation to McDonald's?
I did. I reminded Logan that rkxkelly@gmail.com was the same email address that he put on his McDonald's application in November of 2021, and that he had actually written that that was his preferred means of communication, was this email address. Logan replied that it was a long time ago. He didn't remember that.
Did you ask the defendant about the subscriber information related to rkxkelly@gmail.com?
I did. I described that the person that created the rkxkelly@gmail.com address had given personal information when that account was created, and that the name that was given was Arthur Kelly.
And what was his response?
He basically just said that he didn't remember that email. I don't recall any other specifics of that.
Did you ask the defendant any more questions about buying a tent and sleeping bag at Walmart on April 19th of 2022?
I did, and he again replied that he basically didn't know what I wanted him to say, but that he was not that person.
Now, at some point, did you take a break in the interview?
We did.
And about how long was that break?
It was about 30 to 35 minutes or so.
After that 30 to 35-minute period, did you resume speaking with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And before you resumed speaking with him, did you review his Miranda rights again?
I did. I took out the form that we had gone through. I asked him if he remembered and understood everything. He said that he did. I asked him if he was still willing to speak with me. He shook his head yes, and I noted out loud that he was shaking his head yes.
Now, after the break, did you continue to use the same tone of voice and body language that you used in the first part of the interview?
Yes, I did.
And in the second part of the interview, after the break, did you use any aggressive body movements or gestures?
No, that's not something I do.
After the break, did you ask the defendant any more questions about that bus travel from Boston to Burlington?
I did.
And what did you ask him about, and what did he say?
I advised him that we had located a ticket that sounded similar to what he was describing, in that it showed travel from Boston, Massachusetts to Albany, New York to Burlington, Vermont, and that travel occurred on May 15th. I asked Logan if that sounded correct to him, and he advised that that sounded too late to have been him. I then advised him that I basically asked him if he could guess the name that was used in that ticket purchase. Logan replied Arthur, and then he muttered something under his breath, which I think was whatever, and I told him that was correct. The name given in that ticket purchase on May 15th was Arthur Kelly.
Detective, after the break, did you ask the defendant about guns again?
I did. I asked him if he ever possessed a gun while he was in Concord, and he said no.
And did the interview end at some point shortly after that?
Yes, it did.
Near the end of the interview, did you ask the defendant about what size clothes he wore?
I did.
And what was the purpose in doing that?
At that time, we planned to get a search warrant to seize the clothing that he was wearing, and I wanted to get him replacement clothes so that he didn't have to wear a Tyvek suit or something like that out of the police department. So I asked him what size clothes, and he gave me the sizes. And then we went out and not me, but colleagues went out and purchased clothes for him.
What size pants did he tell you he wore?
30-30.
Your Honor, at this time, we would start playing the video.
Absolutely.
That's all right. And again, this is from States 89. Ryan, can you pause it? And just to clarify, Detective Brown, this interview recording begins kind of partially through it, is that right?
The recording begins about 13 minutes into my actual interview, so we're already having this conversation at this point when the recording starts.
Thank you.
That makes sense. You know when that was? Yes. Is there anything that could help you narrow that down? You were like whether it was just itself? Overalls, warm out. No, that's concrete. It's supposed to know. Okay. What about you when you left? I think I asked this when you left the columns. There's all the snow out still. Okay. Probably around March. Yeah. If I remember correctly, they thought it was more like around February sometime. They
Did we approach her?
left.
Absolutely.
But then they would see you. They would
Okay, so I am told by counsel that there is a cleaner version of this that will be played for you. Given where we are and given the length of this, we'll take our lunch break now. Then we'll come back at 1 o'clock to hear that version of the audio. The instruction that I've given you throughout the course of the trial still applies, but I think it makes sense rather than pushing and taking a lunch at 1:15 or 1:30. I think it just makes more sense to use our break right now, given the length of what you're about to hear. Thank you very much.
All rise.